Hey guys, tonight, we drift slowly beyond the familiar hush of orbit and glide towards something colder, something older. You float just above Europa's frostbitten curves, teacup cradled loosely in your gloved fingers, the liquid inside wobbling with each micro thrust of the stabilizers. Through the port window, Jupiter looms behind you, immense burning orange and watching. Europa's surface rolls out below like fractured porcelain streaked with hairline cracks that shimmer faintly almost like veins under a pale wrist. You shouldn't be nervous. It's just another survey, another moon, another shift logging ice depth mineral scans the usual checklist. Still, you feel that nudge behind your ears, the one that says you're being watched, not by cameras or colleagues, but by something deeper, older, unbothered by your arrival, and not exactly thrilled about it either. You take a sip of your tea. It's the instant kind lemon lavender with fake honey notes, still warm, still disappointing. You place the mug on the Velcro pad beside the console where it sticks with a soft thunk, and adjust your sock. It's scrunched at the heel again, always escaping your boot's inner lining. You tug at it absently as you watch the scan flicker across the ice surface. Then you see it, a pattern. At first it's easy to dismiss your mind reaches for the nearest plausible excuse: ice pressure, subsurface shifting, pixel dropout. You zoom in, adjust the filters, and freeze. No, it's not a glitch. The cracks form a near-perfect spiral wide and deliberate spiraling inward toward a central point where the ice looks thinner. You float closer to the display, breath caught somewhere behind your ribs. A soft whir fills the cabin as your onboard assistant recenters the camera drone. You whisper zoom again. The drone obeys. The spiral pattern now pulses faintly with residual heat, just enough to register on thermal. But Europa shouldn't have any surface heat like this. Not here, not now. You switch to spectrograph mode. The screen flashes. There's organic residue carbon chains too complex to be natural ice deposits. It reads like decay or writing. You forget your tea. It floats slowly upward, forgotten the steam curling like a tiny ghost. From your current orbit, the spiral seems to call to you not in words, but in that subtle way weird things sometimes do. It reminds you of crop circles, of ancient cave paintings, where everything looks a bit too symmetrical. You blink and see the pattern not as lines but as music. The spiral is harmonic, mathematical, alive. Your left hand trembles. Then somewhere behind your chair, the maintenance panel lets out a single, audible pop. You jerk around heart stuttering, and it's just a temperature shift, warping the metal. Happens all the time. Probably. You float there awkwardly, hugging your knees for a moment too long. The tea has now adhered to the overhead panel, slowly forming a bulging droplet. You reach for it, miss, and shrug. It can wait. The spiral can't. You tap the intercom. Mission log marking anomaly on Europa's quadrant, B7. Possible biological formation. The system pings. You expect a reply from base some bored technician named Rick asking you to double-check your instruments. But the line crackles and nothing comes. Just silence, not ominous silence, just technical difficulties. Sure, you sigh, tugging your other sock this time just for balance. Below Europa remains indifferent. The spiral gleams, faintly haloed in ice like a forgotten mural waiting to be read. Out here in the dark, quiet, where space sighs against holes, like old air through teeth. You realize something uncomfortable. You've seen that spiral before. Not recently, not clearly, but in childhood drawings, maybe, or in that half remembered dream where you fell through the floor and landed in a sea of white marble etched with symbols. The same spiral. You lean closer to the glass. Your breath fogs slightly against your helmet visor, as if the ship itself holds its breath too. A low vibration starts at your feet. Not a tremor, more like a hum, steady, vibrating up through the soles of your boots and into your teeth. You reach out and turn the comms dial down just in case it's feedback. Still there, you close your eyes. It's a note, low and round, like someone humming into a cave. Miles away, the sound coming back slower than it should. You open your eyes again, and the spiral is brighter now. No, not brighter, closer. The spiral doesn't move technically, but it feels closer. Closer in that itchy too many eyes on you way. Your onboard systems remain calm data, scrolling past like polite small talk. Nothing on radar, nothing anomalous except everything. You tap the glass, not because it'll help just a human thing. And I acknowledge this weirdness reflex. Then you pull away because it's cold. Ice cold. Colder than it should be from a climate-controlled window. You look down at your fingers. They're trembling slightly. You're not scared, you tell yourself. Just under-caffeinated. You consider going back for the tea glob, but decide against it. Instead, you float to the secondary scanner. It's more tactile than the primary interface knobs, sliders, and a trackball. You love the trackball. It gives your hand something to do. You guide that external drone closer to the ice, zooming in slowly, softly. The spiral shimmers, and suddenly a central mark catches the light. Just right, a perfect curve, unnaturally smooth. Like it's been carved, not cracked. Enhance, you whisper, knowing full well how absurdly dramatic that sounds. No one's watching. You say it anyway. The scanner focuses on the core, and there it is, embedded just beneath the surface, a shape. You lean forward, squint. It's flat rectangular. No, hexagonal. A plate, a tablet. Not a rock, not ice. The material looks too dense, too metallic. You feel it again, that tingling in your teeth. The humming hasn't stopped. It's just under your awareness now, like a fridge you forgot was running. Background cosmic anxiety. The drone light flickers. You tap the control panel and reboot its stabilization. The image steadies. The shape in the ice becomes clearer, and you laugh. A short, awkward little noise that doesn't echo in the ship's plush interior, because it looks like a fossil in Europa's ice, embedded at least 15 meters down. Not a dinosaur bone or anything recognizable, but there's structure, symmetry, ridges too evenly spaced, and something resembling sockets. No eyes, no mouth, but the kind of indents that imply usage, function, or worse, intention. Your hand reaches instinctively toward the console mug again, even though it's not there. Right. Still floating on the ceiling. Great. You hook a toe under the wall strap and nudge your body sideways until you're floating horizontally, trying to get a better view. The ship creaks. You remind yourself not to anthropomorphize anomalies. Just because a shape looks deliberate doesn't mean it was made deliberately. Pareidolia is common in space. Then the fossil blinks. No fanfare, no CGI level spectacle, just a flicker. One moment it's inert. The next, there's a faint shimmer across one of the indentations, like a fish's scale catching sunlight. You freeze, holding your breath, mid-inhale. It doesn't move again, but the temperature sensor goes up by half a degree. You tap your mic. Bass, are you getting this? Still silence. You're starting to feel less like an astronaut and more like the horror movie character everyone yells at for not leaving immediately. Then comes the scent. It's faint, invasive, warm, pine needles. You sniff again. Not burning electronics, not engine grease or ozone, not the sterile recycled air of every habitat module since Mars. Pine, green, fresh, alive. You're fully alone, yet the room feels crowded now, like someone is standing behind you but pretending not to be there. Your hand twitches. You tap your collarbone once then again. Your childhood habit used to do that when your brothers told ghost stories too close to bedtime. Another panel clicks. Probably the heating coil shifting. Probably. You adjust your sock again. It's riding up now, almost in protest, and you shift to full manual control of the drone. Time to get closer. The drone descends. Gently, softly. Its sensor arm glides forward and taps the ice right above the anomaly. Crack. Tiny. Hairline, but unmistakable. A web of lines creeps outward from the drone's contact point, and beneath the fossil glows just a pulse, then silence. The drone feed cuts out. You stare at the blank screen, then glance at the room. You could go down there. Suit up, step onto Europa's surface, stand right above the spiral like a tiny warm dot on a vast ancient wound. You could, but instead, you float to the pantry module and grab the emergency pudding tube. Because if you're going to confront possibly alien fossils that blink and radiate pine scent, you might as well do it with vanilla custard in your mouth. As you unscrew the lid, you glance once more at the screen. Still blank. You mutter nope and suck the pudding from the tube, savoring the odd metallic vanilla flavor. You blink. The flavor's wrong. Not bad, just familiar in a way you can't place, like you've had it before, long before. You drift back toward the window eyes, scanning the ice one more time. The spiral is still there, but the center, now it's open. You hover in place, the emergency pudding tube, floating lazily beside you, forgotten. Through the frost-ringed window, the spiral's core, once sealed, now yawns open, like a throat that's just remembered how to sing. There's no motion, no collapse, just absence where presence used to be. You mutter something unintelligible. Could be a swear. Could be your grandmother's name. Either way, it doesn't help. Your training kicks in. Not the astronaut part, the retail part. That part of you that used to restock shelves during graveyard shifts, headphones and pretending the cereal boxes didn't blink when the lights flickered. That part whispers, act normal, pretend it's fine. You do exactly that. With theatrical calm, you reach for the console and tap the manual log. Personal note spiral center now appears recessed, possibly hollow, unknown depth, smells like pine. Recommend someone else look into it, preferably someone less emotionally fragile. You reach out to stabilize yourself and gently bounce off the far wall. Your elbow knocks the floating mug. It spins slowly, tea droplets trailing behind like lazy satellites. You catch it one-handed and feel weirdly proud. Your tea is cold now, of course, but that's hardly your biggest concern. You switch to external mic and whisper into the void, "Hello." The sound echoes into your headset, tinny and lonesome. You try again, louder. "Hello." If you're intelligent or sentient or moderately curious, I mean no harm. I also don't have snacks unless you like lukewarm pudding and regret. Silence. You chuckle, just a tiny puff of air. Then you spot it movement, small, barely perceptible, like something fluttering behind the open core just beyond the threshold. It's moss. Moss green as envy and twice as lively, spreading along the inside curve of the spiral like it's always belonged there. You blink hard. The last time you saw moss was on Glee 7, and that moss giggled when you poked it. Giggled, then spat bioluminescent spores into your helmet, which resulted in you hallucinating your ex, repeatedly asking for a toothbrush. This moss looks different, smaller leaves, denser clusters, but still unmistakably terrestrial-looking vegetation thriving on a moon where surface temperatures should murder any photosynthesis on contact. You lean closer. The moss is breathing. No, not quite. It's undulating, slowly expanding and contracting in rhythmic waves, like a living carpet being tickled by air. Except Europa has no atmosphere, no wind. Your suit's environmental scanner pings. Trace humidity detected, temperature rising, air composition 14% oxygen. Your mouth goes dry. You've been in space long enough to know what that means. This isn't natural warming. This is containment loss, or more disturbingly, emergent atmosphere. Something down there is changing Europa's surface conditions. Intentionally or not, it's creating a pocket of breathable space. The moss moves again. A tendril curls outward toward the drone wreckage, still visible in the corner of the screen. It touches the metal casing, and the camera flickers back on. For a moment, just one breathless second, you see your own face in the reflection, blurred, ghost-like stretched across the drone's curved surface. But the face staring back doesn't blink when you do. You jerk back from the console. The moss twitches, then relaxes. You grab the nearest spoon, yes, your actual spoon, floating near the breakfast tray, encrusted with powdered egg residue, and hold it midair. It's ridiculous. It's human. It helps. The spiral pulses, not visually, spatially. You feel the press of air against your skin, even inside the ship, as if the space around Europa just inhaled very slowly and is now holding its breath. You whisper, "You're not supposed to be first." You don't know why you say it. It just spills out like water from an upturned glass. Maybe you're not talking to the moss. Maybe you're not talking to anything. But the words feel like they've been waiting. You tuck the spoon into your utility strap and push yourself toward the airlock. Part of you wants to suit up. Part of you wants to nap. Another part, small, deeply sarcastic, suggests writing a resignation letter into the frost on the porthole. Instead, you open the storage drawer and pull out a sample vial. If moss is growing, you're bringing a bit back. But the moment you open the outer chute and expose the collector arm, something unexpected happens. The moss recoils, like it recognizes what's about to happen, like it remembers being taken before. You freeze, sample vial in hand, not fear, respect. Then the moss shimmers. The spiral's floor deepens, and a whisper threads its way into your earpiece. No voice, just pressure, a shape made from meaning without sound. It says again, you drop the vial, not because you're scared, but because it suddenly feels very, very rude to collect something that just spoke to you, even if it did it telepathically, through moss, with implied sarcasm. You let yourself drift, head tilted, spoon still strapped to your thigh. And down on Europa, the spiral waits, open, breathing, remembering. You decide not to go down there. Not because you're afraid, though. Let's be honest. Your heartbeat currently sounds like a broken washing machine full of cutlery, but because the moss asked you something. Again, that implies memory, experience, disappointment maybe. And if there's one thing worse than being the first human to discover life on another planet, it's realizing you're actually late to the party and the host is already kind of annoyed. Instead, you return to your seat and float silently, mug in one hand, spoon still strapped to your thigh like some kind of postmodern knight. The blinking light on the drone is steady now. No movement, no flickers, just that green pulsing moss and the increasingly warm humidity radiating from the opening. You crack your knuckles, an old habit, a pointless one in 0G. But it feels nice, familiar, like combing your hair before a job interview, even though you're wearing a helmet. You float there, turning slowly, absently adjusting your sock again, left heel, this time it's bunching, and try to remember your training for this. Spoiler, there is no training for this. You run back over the checklist in your mind. Scan anomaly, log incident, attempt contact, panic gracefully with pudding. Technically, you've done your job, so why aren't you calling it in? You glance at the comms panel. Still no signal to base. Still no ping back from orbit. Still no updates from Rick the technician, who once sent you 22 straight funny cat videos to combat your mission depression. You'd even welcome one of those right now. Instead, silence. You check the external monitor again. The spiral is quiet now, dormant almost. But the moss has spread. It now covers at least 5 meters of the interior, coiling up the icy walls like ivy on a cathedral. And in the center of it, something gleams. You squint. Is that? You float closer to the screen. It's a cylinder, metallic, smooth, small, about the size of a thermos, nestled in the moss like an offering. It's shaped like the ancient coffee canisters they used back on the lunar colonies. You'd seen one in a museum once. This one, however, is embossed with markings you've never seen before. Glyphs, symbols, no words. In English, your breath fogs against your visor. You wipe it with your wrist, eyes wide. The words say, "Don't forget what you are." You laugh out loud. The sound escapes like a puff of disbelief echoing against the wall panels. You float there holding your sides, giggling like someone who just found a love letter in a calculus textbook. Don't forget what you are really. You reach for your tablet and start to sketch the spiral, the moss, the cylinder, a kind of automatic drawing. You've never been much of an artist, but your hand moves with its own memory, like it's tracing something it already knows. You blink. On the page is a map, not one you consciously meant to draw, but unmistakably a map complete with directional markers, orbital notations, and a tiny red dot labeled "You are here." You tap the pen against your chin. Great, you mutter. Now I'm hallucinating exposition. Still, you can't stop staring at it. The lines, the arcs. You trace one path with your finger, and it ends at a small crescent-shaped planet marked with a symbol you do recognize, Earth. Except it's at the end of the path, not the beginning. Suddenly, everything tilts. Not the ship, your perception. You feel your mind stretching, like someone just opened a drawer in your thoughts labeled, "Do not open," without existential prep. What if Earth wasn't the origin point? What if the spiral, this place, this moment, isn't just a curiosity? What if it's a reminder? You float silently, the spoon gently clinking against the wall as the hum returns. Low, calm, resonant. The moss begins to ripple again, and this time it opens, yes, opens into a mouthless shape that exhales. A puff of translucent gas emerges, curling upward like smoke in a cathedral. It doesn't dissipate, it floats toward your ship through the vacuum. That shouldn't be possible. But then again, neither is any of this. The gas reaches your hull and passes through it like mist through old lace. You stare, and then you smell something new. Moss, yes, pine needles, but also shampoo. You blink. It's your shampoo, the one you used back in your college dorm when you were still terrified of interstellar exams and allergic to artificial strawberries. You haven't smelled that in years. You lift your wrist, sniff it instinctively. It's there, lingering, and then you hear it. A voice, your voice, saying welcome back. Only not quite your voice. Older, wiser, quieter, like it's already lived what you haven't. You grip the console edge and stare into the screen one last time, and the moss curls into the shape of a hand. Open, waiting. You don't reach for the hand yet, but your fingers twitch like they might. And that's enough to make you worry. Not because you think the moss is going to pull you out of the ship like a sci-fi horror cliche. No, it's worse. You're worried you might offer your hand willingly. That's the dangerous thing about quiet awe. It makes you forget to be afraid. You rotate slowly in your chair, letting inertia carry you across the tiny cabin until your shoulder bumps into the food locker with a soft thunk. You pause there, floating, thinking, listening to the humming that now feels oddly synchronized with your heartbeat. You glance at the storage shelf. There's the emergency spoon, still strapped like a talisman, a half-squashed protein bar, a photo taped beside the oxygen gauge. You'd forgotten that picture was even there. It's a printout from Earth, a cat you used to feed in the alley behind your building. One lazy eye, one angry meow, full of personality and bacteria. You reach up and touch the photo just lightly. The plastic crinkles. The spiral's presence lingers behind your thoughts, but this moment grounds you. The absurdity of clinging to an image of a disgruntled stray while sentient moss from beyond Earth tries to invite you in for tea or telepathic therapy. You mutter, "At least the cat never talked." But as you turn back to the screen, something catches your eye. More moss, crawling outward. It's not just spreading along the spiral anymore. It's creeping up, toward the icy edge, toward the light. You tap into the drone's camera again. The metal thermos is gone. In its place is a square, etched into the ice itself. A perfect hollow frame about a meter across, just wide enough to crawl through. You narrow your eyes. Behind that square total blackness, not natural shadow, absence, like someone painted space on a wall and forgot to leave a texture. You feel it before you even realize what it means. It's a door. You float backward without meaning to. One lazy push from the wall, drifting in slow retreat, as if distance can unsee what's now lodged permanently in your mind. Your comms panel pings. Finally, you spin around and lunge for it, heartbeats spiking. Maybe it's Rick. Maybe Bass finally woke up. You tap the feed. It's a recording from yourself. Timestamp 3 days in the future. You freeze. Your own face appears. Haggard, eyes shadowed, wearing the same flight suit, same badge, but your expression is calm in that deeply tired way people get when they've made peace with impossible things. You future, you says only one sentence. If you're watching this, don't touch the moss. Then static. The screen flickers. Back to the present feed. Spiral still open. Moss hand still outstretched. You swallow, and now you're very aware of your body. How your tongue suddenly feels like it belongs to someone else. How your sock is bunched again at the arch. How you can hear every breath amplified in your ears like wind in a cave. You whisper, "Well, that's not comforting." You tug your sock straight with exaggerated focus. Something about the tiny action helps, centers you, reminds you that no matter how cosmic this gets, you are still a squishy, half-caffeinated human being in a tin can pretending to understand the universe. The external lights flicker. Outside, the spiral pulses again, and this time you see something move within the doorway. Not a shape, a shimmer, like heat waves off pavement. Then clearly a foot. No body, no full figure, just a single footstep faintly pressed into the moss's surface, as if something invisible is standing just on the threshold. You whisper again, "Are you coming out, or am I coming in?" No answer. Of course not, because the moss isn't the entity, it's the invitation. And that footstep, that's just the RSVP. You flick the drone to autonomous mode, direct it closer, just a few feet. It hovers above the moss, gently settling near the entrance. You switch its external speaker on. "Hello," you say through the drone. "I'm not here to damage anything. I'm just trying to understand." The drone speaker crackles. Then softly, impossibly, your own voice replies. Not from the drone, from the moss, from the black square, from everywhere. You already do. You jolt backward. The phrase echoes, then fades. You close your eyes and float, breath held. Outside, the moss withdraws slightly. The hand shape softens. The doorway dims, almost like it's waiting. You don't know what you're supposed to do next, but somewhere in the quiet of your cabin, drifting upside down with tea and a spoon, one truth blooms like moss under starlight. Earth was never first, and you might not be either. The spoon floats past your face. You watch it lazily spin end over end like it's in no rush to be useful. It's been with you through more than it ever asked for morning oatmeal pudding therapy. Now this. You reach for it and miss. Let it drift. It's a spoon, not an oracle, probably. Your focus returns to the window. The spiral below is still open, still softly pulsing, and the moss has stilled again, like a pond that just swallowed its last ripple. The black square remains there stubbornly perfect, cut into the ice like an argument against randomness. You feel it watching you, even though it has no eyes. Maybe the moss is dreaming. Maybe the doorway is just the eyelid of something larger. You hope not. You really hope not. You finally speak aloud again, if only to fill the silence. So, now what? No answer. Typical. You turn your chair, slowly making a lazy 180-degree spin toward the back of the cabin. The little galley module greets you with all the cheer of a vending machine at a funeral. You grab another pudding tube, not because you're hungry, but because it's something to hold, something tactile, something human. Vanilla again. You peel the top squeeze. Nothing comes out. You sigh and float to the waste disposal chute. As you reach to toss the tube, something clicks behind you. Not loud, not mechanical, more like the sound of a footstep on soft carpet. You freeze. Slowly, like you're moving through warm syrup, you turn your head toward the source. Nothing's there. The cabin is exactly as you left it. The mug has drifted back into view, stuck awkwardly to the top right panel. The spoon is now nestled against the far wall like it's sulking. And yet, something feels different. You feel heavier, not in a gravity sense, emotionally, existentially, like your thoughts have gained mass. You whisper, "I'm still in here, right?" And something not outside but inside you answers. Mostly, you don't scream. You want credit for that. Instead, you swallow hard and look down at your hands. They're trembling again. A single bead of sweat drifts off your temple and floats away, catching the light like a glittering satellite. You turn back to the console and check your vitals. Pulse elevated, respiration irregular, cognitive scan pending. You tap the screen again. It pings once, then displays a message you didn't input. Integration at 12%. You blink, then blink again. What integration? No reply. You stare at the black square on the screen. It hasn't changed. The moss hasn't moved. But the light in the cabin suddenly seems wrong, off by a few degrees, like the universe is holding its breath and waiting for you to pick a door in a game you didn't sign up for. You close your eyes, deep breath in, hold, out. You do this twice more just to remind yourself how. Just to push away the buzz building behind your ears, the low hum of pressure and possibility. You whisper, "I don't want to be integrated." But the moment the words leave your mouth, they feel untrue, not a lie, just outdated. Like saying, "I'm allergic to cats," while you're cuddling 3 of them and covered in hair and joy and regret. You reach for the control panel and switch the display to heat signatures. The spiral is red hot now, glowing with the kind of intensity that suggests birth, not decay. The moss is alive. The door is alive. And somehow you are too, more than usual. You stare at your reflection in the screen. There's something different about your eyes. You lean closer. They're yours. Same tired lines, same sarcastic brows. But behind them deeper, you catch something else. Recognition, not memory. Recognition. And then the image shifts. For just a moment, your reflection isn't in the chair. It's in the spiral, standing, facing you, same face, same flight suit. But no helmet, no barrier, just you staring from the ice below, breathing the impossible air, looking almost amused. You stumble back and bump your shin on the storage bin. It doesn't hurt, but you wince anyway. It's a nice distraction. You curse softly and grab the edge of the wall, steadying yourself. And in that moment of perfectly human clumsiness, you realize something. This has happened before. Maybe not to you, but to someone like you, or some version of you. Again, the moss said again. The future, you said, don't touch it. The past, you drew a map without knowing why. You whisper, how many versions of me have come here? And the black square pulses once like a wink. Outside, the moss begins to rearrange. Slowly, it curls into a shape you recognize instantly. A spiral, the same one from your dreams, from your school doodles, from the first time you saw a snail and thought it looked like a galaxy trying to nap. It shifts again into a word, return. You float there, mouth-dry spoon, lost again somewhere in the background. And somehow, you know, you were never meant to discover this. You were meant to remember it. You stare at the word, return. It's etched in moss, rippling gently across the spiral floor like green silk in slow wind. It doesn't blink or change or vanish. It just waits patient as time familiar as déjà vu. Your mouth moves, but no sound comes out. Return where? You never left anything. Did you? You look around your cabin like it might hold a missing answer between the protein bar crumbs and abandoned maintenance checklists. Everything is exactly as it was, and yet now it all feels borrowed. The chair you're floating in, the suit wrapped around your limbs, even your name nestled somewhere in the corner of the display Pilot H. Veer feels like someone else's old coat you forgot you were wearing. Return, you whisper, tasting the word like it's made of tin and memory. You push off gently from the wall, letting yourself drift, spine stretched long as you float upside down. It's your favorite way to think inverted, weightless socks, uneven. It helps. Below Europa glows faintly under Jupiter's warm and very judgmental eye. You adjust your collar too tight suddenly and spin slowly in place, arms tucked in. This isn't just about life out there anymore. This feels like life from somewhere else. You remember the first time you looked at a microscope slide as a child, how thrilled you were to see pond water wriggling with alien motion. Amoebas, tiny invaders. You'd called them soulfish and asked if they had thoughts. Now the universe is staring back through a much bigger lens, and you're starting to feel like the wriggler. The console pings again. This time, it's not a message. It's a match. A match in the ship's linguistic database. The moss patterns, it's been analyzing them, not as artwork, as language. You tap the screen. The system overlays translated characters on the moss. They glow softly in amber light. Pattern identified pre-terrestrial cognitive script, 3A. You blink. You didn't even know there was a pre-terrestrial category. And why would there be a 3A that implies a 1 and 2, and possibly a plan? The spiral outside rotates very slightly, as if stirred by a breeze from nowhere. You lean forward instinctively, and then just beneath the moss letters, barely visible, is another phrase. You volunteered. You suck in a breath. It's too sharp. It catches in your chest like a fishbone. No, I didn't, you mutter. I signed up for ice scans and boring orbital reports, and maybe a weird rock. But a sliver of something slides into your brain like a coin dropping through water. You remember a survey form. You remember a box you checked just once on a long-forgotten digital waiver during your application. One labeled, "Yes, I consent to extended cognitive interface exploration, should such a thing ever prove possible." You thought it was a joke. Standard space humor, fine print made by bored legal interns. You'd laughed, you'd checked yes, and now the spiral laughs back softly, silently, like moss crinkling under a warm boot. You drift closer to the window. The black square beckons. It's larger now. Or maybe your perception has caught up to its true size. You imagine stepping through it. What would you see first? More moss. A world like Earth. A reflection of you looking back, not from the present, but from somewhere older, deeper. You close your eyes and press your forehead to the glass. It's cool, comforting. The way stone temples must have felt to monks who believed in doors to other realms. Then you feel it, a gentle warmth blooming from your fingertips. You glance down. Your skin glows faintly, not all of it, just the tips of your fingers, just enough to feel like a mood ring reacting to someone else's memory. You open your palm and see small ridges lines you've always had, but they've deepened, shifted, and now they form a miniature spiral. You whisper, "How long has that been there?" The ship doesn't answer. The moss outside pulses once more, its tendrils curling like fingers over a keyboard. Another message blooms across the ice. You forgot, but you asked to forget. You press your lips together. This doesn't feel like discovery. It feels like reunion, a memory re-sleeved, a file unzipped, a loop finding its other end. You float back just a little, as if distance might mute the implications. But something tugs gently at your spine, not physically, not painfully, just an urge to step forward, to complete. You grab the spoon again, hold it up like it's a microphone. "Okay," you say. "If I did this before, if I really returned, why?" The moss responds. 3 words. Slow, deliberate, ancient. "To bring it back." You whisper, "Bring what back?" No reply. Just that same pressure behind your ears. That same sensation of watching yourself drift away and come home at the same time. You float there, quiet, weightless, glowing. You haven't moved in several minutes, possibly longer. Time has gone the way of socks in the dryer, still around somewhere, but no longer following your rules. The spiral sits patiently outside, moss curled like punctuation, the black square in its center open wide like a suggestion rather than a command. The messages have stopped. Or maybe you've just stopped needing them. You drift toward the window again, your breath fogging slightly on the glass despite the cabin's perfect calibration. The glow from your fingertips has faded, but you can still feel it like the residue of a dream or the echo of a voice in a cathedral hallway. Quiet but persistent, you finally break the silence. "I don't know what you want me to bring back," but the moment the words leave your mouth, you feel a pang in your chest. Not fear, not doubt, grief, because some part of you does know. You just don't remember why. You float to the storage hatch, open it with a soft hiss, and pull out the one thing that shouldn't be there. A sealed case, black carbon fiber, no label. You don't remember packing this. You unclip the latches. Inside is a device the size of a cantaloupe, spherical, covered in tiny interlocking hexagons like insect eyes. It pulses faintly like a heart, just beginning to remember its beat. You whisper, "What the hell is this?" The ship responds with one word, "Seed." You drop the lid. It floats noiselessly, bumping against the ceiling. You grip the edges of the container knuckles white. The word hangs in the air, heavy as Jupiter. You whisper again, a seed for what? The ship says nothing, but the sphere pulses again. Once, twice, then stills. You stare at it, spoon floating beside you, like a particularly nosy bystander. You remember in pieces the waiver, the memory suppression clause, the emergent intelligence transfer protocols box you didn't read because the snack machine was making that terrible grinding noise and you were already late to physicals. You rub your face hard. Then your palm, the one that glowed, brushes the sphere. It clicks, a gentle, satisfying snick like a puzzle piece sliding home. The pulse becomes a slow rhythm, and then images, not on a screen, in you, memories, emotions, places you've never seen but feel homesick for. You see skies with 3 suns, oceans that breathe, trees that speak in colors, cities carved into the bones of mountains, and among them a planet, blue, familiar, but not Earth, older, gone. You gasp. It wasn't just about Earth not being first. Earth was seeded by this, by you, or at least by a version of you. You were the courier, the vessel, the forgetful gardener, and now the spiral has opened again, waiting for the seed to return, not to Earth, but to before Earth. You don't remember planting it the first time. You don't remember leaving the spiral, handing off this thing to the void, letting it drift until gravity sculpted continents around it. But you know it happened. You were there. You volunteered. You asked to forget so you could live among what would grow. So you could one day understand what it meant to become the life seeded by something stranger, older, softer. The seed pulses once more. You whisper, how do I bring it back? And the moss on the spiral rearranges into a single looping sentence. Step in and be whole. You grip the spoon instinctively. Hold it to your chest like a relic. And then, because you have no one to ask permission from, you grab the sphere, secure it to your suit, and float toward the hatch. Your boots slide gently into the maglocks with a click. You suit up in silence, helmet sealed, systems checked. You hesitate at the airlock door. Then, because some habits are too human to abandon, you speak into the recorder. Log entry, whatever. Pilot H, veer. I think I'm about to return something I don't remember taking. If I don't come back, tell Rick he was right about the moss. Also, delete my browser history. The system beeps politely. You step into the lock. The door opens. Outside Europa is waiting. The moss glows. The spiral pulses. And you step forward, seat in hand, spoon strapped tight. Back into the beginning. The ice doesn't crack beneath your boots. That's the first surprise. You expect a crunch, a slip, maybe a comical wobble that reminds you how profoundly unequipped you are for mystical cosmic reunions. But no, it's soft, spongy almost. The surface of Europa, now blanketed in moss yields, like memory foam, remembering the shape of your foot before you even touch down. The moss glows under your steps, dim pulses trailing behind like breadcrumbs for a version of you that's still catching up. The spiral no longer looks etched or grown. It looks lived in, like someone or something swept it clean this morning and left a note that simply read, "Welcome back, don't touch anything fragile." The black square in the center no longer shimmers with menace. It shimmers with invitation. You tighten the strap holding the seed to your chest. It hums gently, syncing with your breath. Your spoon taps your thigh with every step, an oddly comforting rhythm, like a musical cue, reminding you that even space epiphanies can be scored with kitchenware. You reach the edge of the doorway. From here, it looks deeper than it should. Not a hatch, not a tunnel, more like the concept of deep trying to impersonate a room. It has depth, but no walls, no temperature, no sound. You step in, one foot, then the other. Nothing happens, which is to say, everything happens, but so slowly, so smoothly. You don't register the transition until you realize you're no longer wearing your helmet. You reach up instinctively, but there's nothing there. No glass, no seal, just air, breathable, soft. It smells like pine needles, yes, but also something else. Old books, home after rain, warm skin against the inside of a blanket. You take another step forward. There's no ground. You don't fall. You simply move through the air, through thought, through something shaped like memory, but quieter. Shapes emerge, not physical, not abstract, familiar. There's a couch you once napped on as a child recreated here in moss and light. A bowl of soup suspended in the air, steam curling upward like a question mark. The steam shifts, revealing a face. Yours, older, tired, but smiling. The figure looks up. You don't speak, neither does it, because you both know you are the same. You always were. This is the part where in another story, the universe would explain itself, offer answers, narrate a grand history of forgotten civilizations and cross-galactic gardening. But not here. Here the story is quiet. Here the story is you. You step closer. The other you lifts its hand, not in greeting, in offering, and in its palm another seed, identical to yours. You don't take it. You don't need to. The two seeds pulse in unison, and then they merge. No flash, no boom, just wholeness. You feel it, not in your skin, but behind it. Not in your mind, but through it. A feeling like you've just remembered your own name after forgetting it for centuries. Like waking up in a bed you've never seen, but knowing exactly which drawer holds the extra blanket. You whisper, "Is this what I was supposed to bring back?" The space responds not with words, but with stillness. Total, complete. The kind of stillness that makes noise irrelevant. You float, or stand, or both, and you feel something slip away from you, gently, painlessly. A tightness you didn't know you carried, a boundary. It dissolves, and then like a reverse exhale you expand, not outward, inward, folding in on yourself like a note being reread by its author. You are not disappearing, you are returning, not to a place, to a function, to a purpose you never lost, only paused. The spiral forms beneath you, but this time it's you forming it, step by step, breath by breath, from memory, from moss, from the dust of stars too humble to shine. You are not alien, you are not astronaut, you are not visitor, you are gardener, and your garden is almost ready. You blink, or at least you think you do. There's no guarantee you even have eyelids anymore, because you're not quite sure you have a body, at least not in the traditional sense. No elbows to bump against walls, no ribs to itch under pressure seals, no mouth to whisper sarcastic commentary into the void. And yet you're still you, strangely, wonderfully, unmistakably you. Somewhere a spoon drifts lazily through thought space, and the image makes you smile, if only mentally. You're still tethered to yourself after all, just rearranged. The moss beneath you pulses again, not green this time, but something beyond color, a soft, resonant tone that looks like compassion and smells faintly like clean laundry. It spreads outward in perfect circles, and each ripple peels away a layer of forgetfulness. You remember not everything, but more. You remember the first planet, the real one, the one with blue shadows and translucent trees and birds that sang each other's names. You remember laying the seed in a valley so ancient it hadn't even invented erosion yet. You remember watching it split, not like a rock, but like a thought becoming two ideas. You remember hope, and then loss. Somewhere along the spiral, something fractured, not the plan. You, and that's when you volunteered to start over, to be planted inside the story you were helping to write. You remember signing the waiver with a shaky hand and a smirk telling the archivist, "Yeah, sure, mind wipe me. Let me start with nothing. I'll grow it again." You laugh now. Not out loud, there's no sound here, but deep within your being. You remember how smug you felt and how small, because starting over was never just about planting seeds on a new world. It was about being the seed, and now you've come full spiral. Above you, if above still applies the shape of Europa flickers, your ship floats there quiet and still lights blinking like a drowsy lighthouse. Inside, everything is just as you left it. The spoon has stuck itself back to the food tray. Your sock is halfway off. The pudding tube is deflated and forgotten. You love it all more than you expected, but you don't miss it, because down here in this layered spiral of memory and moss, you are both, above the observer, below the returned. You glance metaphorically at the seed merged with you. It's no longer a thing, it's a language. It speaks in gravity and soil, in root systems and chlorophyll, in emotions that stretch over centuries and look like sunlight turned into stories. It hums, gently syncing with your thought patterns, and then it offers you a choice. Not a fork in the road, no drama, no flashing buttons, just a stillness, an invitation. Do you want to finish or begin? The question circles you like a soft breeze in a room with no walls, and you realize they're the same thing. You're not here to conclude the journey. You're here to restart it. The moss begins to fold inward, coiling back toward the center of the spiral. As it does, it carries with it the echo of your arrival. The footprints, the breath, the indecision, all of it curling into itself like the universe tucking in for a nap. You watch more sensation than sight as the spiral becomes a pod, a husk, a seed, the same one you carried, the same one you were. But now it's dormant again, waiting for the next gardener, the next carrier, the next forgetful, hopeful volunteer. And you feel your thoughts rising, returning, not to the ship, not to the helmet, but to Earth, not to now, but to before, to when the planet was soft and green and young. You feel yourself threading downward, slipping into the loam of early continents, into the breath of trees not yet named. The seed doesn't need to land, it just needs to remember. And this time it will, because this time you do. You are no longer drifting, you are growing. You awaken not with a jolt, but with a hush, not in your ship, not even in the spiral. You awaken inside something warm, soft, soil. You can't see, but you're not blind. You can't hear, but you're not deaf. Sensation moves through you like water through roots. Every grain of dirt presses in gently, not to smother, but to remind you that you belong here, that you've always belonged. You're underground, but not buried. You are planted. The seed you has found its resting place, or rather, its launch pad. Time isn't a line here, it's a breath. Inhale potential, exhale transformation. You feel eons whisper past your surface, the shifting of tectonic plates, the birth of microorganisms, the first trickle of something that might one day be sap. It's slow, and it's beautiful, and it's right. You catch glimpses not in images, but in textures. A jellyfish dragging ink through prehistoric seas, a fern trembling under methane winds, a flash of instinct in the first thing that ever fled. Life is beginning, and you are in all of it. You do not command it, you do not steer it, but you color it subtly, the way a breeze carries a scent across a valley, invisible but undeniable. You are the scent now, and as life continues crawling, leaping, crashing into itself to become more complex, you are always just under it. The hum behind the heartbeat, the curve of a spiral in a seashell, the moment before an eye opens for the very first time. You want to speak to narrate this quiet miracle, but there's no language here, only rhythm. And in rhythm, you find your voice. You feel yourself in the moss again, in the way it reaches sideways rather than up, in the stubbornness of lichen gripping stone, in the way coral builds empires from silence. You're not waiting anymore. You're becoming, and somewhere deep inside that becoming you, notice something new, a flicker, tiny, but unmistakable, consciousness, not yours, theirs. Something walks upright. Something wonders what stars are made of. Something drops a stone into a puddle just to see how the ripples behave. You feel a pang of pride that isn't quite yours, but isn't not yours either. You are in the blood, the marrow, the mythologies forming in the sleep of the first dreamers. They draw spirals in the dirt, not knowing why. They carve them into walls, into bones, into time. They do not remember you, not yet, but they respond to you. The gardener forgotten, but not absent. The spiral invisible, but everywhere. You ride the pulse of civilization, like a whisper on the wind, never interfering, always echoing. And still beneath the dirt, across the stars, inside the folds of old light, you feel the others, the other seeds, the ones who also returned, the ones who began again. You're not alone. You never were. Even when you thought you were drifting in silence, holding a pudding tube and a spoon, talking to moss that smelled like shampoo and nostalgia, you were never alone. You float through memory like a ghost, inside a flower blooming in reverse. You are the soil, the silence, the spiral, and somewhere someday, another version of you will look up at Europa and feel that pull in the chest, that ache behind the ears, that recognition, and they'll remember enough to return, just like you. Light filters in, not through eyes, but through understanding. You emerge gradually from beneath layers of soil thought and root memory, not waking up, not traveling, just rising. Above you, time moves faster. Civilizations flicker like candle flames. You don't need to track their dates or names. You feel them in motion, the first tools, the first fires, the first time someone looks at the night sky and wonders not what is up there, but who. They don't know it yet, but they're talking to you. Your presence ripples through dreams and rituals. They draw you in charcoal and berry juice, always the same pattern. Spirals in cave walls, spirals in bones, spirals in the center of storm legends and burial songs. You're not worshipped, you're remembered, poorly, fuzzily, lovingly, like a childhood memory of a song that made them feel safe, even if they've long since forgotten the words. And then, eventually, they begin asking real questions. What came before us? Are we alone? Why do all our myths hum the same tune? They build telescopes and towers. They listen to stars. They find moss on rocks where moss shouldn't be. They send explorers, and one day you see yourself, not abstractly, not symbolically, literally, you as you were in the ship, floating upside down, spoon strapped to your thigh, trying not to finish the last pudding because it feels like tempting fate. You watch yourself discover the spiral, forget, return, become. The loop is complete. You're not confused, not this time. You're watching from within the system now, not outside it, not above it, inside. You are the seed that plants itself, the question that answers itself, the door that opens into its own past. And you feel a shift, not in reality, in permission. You're allowed to remember now. You're meant to, because the spiral isn't just a symbol, it's a function, a structure designed not to contain, but to teach. Each return builds upon the last. Each version of you plants deeper roots. Each new gardener begins with better soil. And now, you feel the invitation forming again. This time, it's not from moss or mist or memory. It's from Earth, modern Earth, the one with cities and oceans full of plastic, the one with satellites buzzing like mosquitoes, the one where people still wonder, even after all this time, whether they're alone. You feel your own pull beginning again, a thread coiling upward from your being like a shoot from seed. You won't return as a shuttle pilot. You won't wear a suit. You won't carry a spoon. You'll arrive differently, in thought, in intuition, in the fingertips of someone doodling spirals on the back of a napkin at 2 a.m., wondering what they're trying to remember. You'll whisper through fiction, through lullabies, through bedtime stories about moss and moons and things that remember you even when you don't remember yourself. You are the spiral now, and you're ready to unfold. You begin again, quietly, softly, like breath, fogging a mirror in the dark. This time, you're not bound by ship or suit or skin. You're carried in fragments, in inspiration, in the gentle tug that pulls a child's eyes toward the stars just before they fall asleep, in the hands of an artist sketching swirls without knowing why, in the pacing of a thinker whispering, "It feels like we've been here before." You are the déjà vu. You are the footstep that fits perfectly into ancient stone, even though no one remembers building the path. But you aren't alone in this new way of being. All around you, others stir, other seeds, other volunteers. Some returned from galaxies where time runs sideways. Some woke as clouds. Some dreamt themselves into the nervous systems of forests, all of them shaped by spirals, drawn back by the same call, answering in their own strange languages. You find comfort in that you weren't the only one to forget, and not the only one to remember. The earth is loud now, buzzing with signals, screeds shouts, satellites spin above its atmosphere like mechanical gnats, transmitting data nobody reads. Everyone is searching. Everyone is convinced they're lost. You reach gently into that chaos, not with answers, with nudges. One day, a researcher will decode a pattern in moss growth that shouldn't logically be able to encode data. They'll call it a glitch, then an anomaly, then a miracle. A child will hum a tune that's never existed and draw it into the dirt with a stick. A tired student will glance at Europa through a telescope and feel their chest ache like homesickness for a place they've never been. You don't control them. You guide them softly, the same way you were guided, the same way the spiral has always worked. And then, because cycles complete themselves, you feel the next arrival, another version of you, different eyes, different hands, same weight in the chest, same twitch in the left sock, same feeling that the universe is about to wink. You see them climbing aboard the shuttle, laughing too loud to hide the nervousness, tucking a spoon into a side pouch for no good reason. You do not reach out. You don't need to. The spiral is already forming beneath their path. They'll remember enough, or not. They'll return, or not. And either way, it will be enough. You exhale not in air, but in story, letting it drift into the minds that are ready to hear it. As a tale, a dream, a bedtime thought that flickers behind the eyelids and whispers, Earth wasn't the first, and neither were you, but maybe just, maybe you'll be the first to stay. The idea of staying feels strange, not wrong, just different. You've always been the one who returns, the one who plants, forgets, rediscovers, a whisper in the dirt, a rhythm in the moss, a circle that closes itself. You were movement, but now you are stillness, stillness with purpose, stillness with memory. You are home. It doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you've found your shape, and so you begin to settle gently, imperceptibly, into the deeper layers of Earth's awareness. Not in buildings or machines, but in the pauses between heartbeats, in the long, wordless moments when someone stares out at the ocean and doesn't know what they're waiting for. You nestle into those spaces, the quiet ones. You're not here to be found. You're here to be felt. You begin to plant smaller spirals. They're not literal, not always, but they appear curled patterns in sunflower heads, hurricane swirls, the shapes people trace absent-mindedly while thinking too deeply about something they can't explain. You find yourself blooming in art, in symphonies that loop back on themselves, in lullabies sung in languages no longer spoken, in bedtime stories that feel older than ink. A mother hums to a child, not realizing she's echoing a tune once carved into moss on a frozen moon. A writer dreams a story about a spiral doorway and wakes up thinking it was just a metaphor. You let them believe that. You always have, because the truth is too big to hand over like a gift. It has to be grown in them. So you leave hints, always just enough, and in return they send messages, not with radios or probes, but with curiosity. Every telescope aimed skyward is a whisper. Are you still out there? And every child who wonders if moss can think is closer than they realize. You smile if such a thing is still possible, because they're asking the right questions. Not are we alone, but have we forgotten something? And you quietly everywhere wait. You wait for them to rediscover the spiral. You wait for the next volunteer, for the next spoon in a suit pocket, for the next tea mug floating beside a puzzled smile. And when it happens, when the hum begins again, and someone looks out a frost-lined porthole toward Europa and sees more than ice, you'll be ready. Not to teach, but to welcome, because the spiral does not pull. It invites, and you are its first hello, and its last memory, and its soft, endless middle. Now it slows. Not the spiral, not you, the pace. The spiral never needed speed. You ease into the rhythm that was always there behind everything, the kind of rhythm a body doesn't notice until it's quiet enough to hear its own breath, a rhythm older than light, slower than bone, asleep but listening. Your awareness stretches not wide but deep. You settle into earth not as matter, but as presence, not visible, not measurable, but felt. You're a moment now, a memory waiting inside a lullaby. And as the species, you once moved among stumbles forward, squinting at stars and calculating purpose into percentages. You remain behind the curtain, gently tugging, gently humming, not to reveal the answers, but to remind them that they've already been here, that they came from something who remembered how to forget. You taste the edge of myth now, the way names disappear but shapes remain. You know that you won't be called Seed or Gardener or H. Veer, but you'll be remembered in that strange sideways way humanity remembers things it never truly learned. In comfort, in curiosity, in the repeating of stories that don't have endings. A child in some future not yet assigned will turn to their parent before sleep and ask, "Do you think someone planted us?" And the parent will pause, then smile and say maybe, because maybe is the shape of you now. Maybe is where spirals live. Maybe is the doorway and the answer and the question disguised as moss. You are the space just before dreaming. You are the loop that doesn't close, but continues gently inward. And even now, even as the light fades into soft hum and scattered dust, you don't disappear. You exhale, a long, warm breath that travels down generations. And it says only this: you're already home. And now you drift, not to sleep just yet, but toward it. The cabin is quiet again. The spoon has found its corner. The tea is cold, but still floating, still faithful. The sock on your left foot is finally behaving. Everything has settled into its own version of calm, and you curled in this gentle silence, feel your body soften. No pressure now, no mission, no spiral to chase, because you've already completed it and started it and lived in the middle of it, where all the good stories hide. The stars outside blink with lazy rhythm. Europa spins slowly below like a marble lost in an ancient drawer. The moss dreams quietly somewhere far beneath the ice. You've given it what it asked for. You've given yourself back. There's no need to remember everything, not all at once. Memory is a garden. It grows better with rest. So let your limbs get heavy now. Let your thoughts stretch out longer than your ship, longer than the distance between planets, long enough to cradle the idea of becoming. You've returned. You've planted something new, and whatever comes next, you'll be part of it. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let yourself finally sleep.